one time.
Well, Betty, obviously you front an organization, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, so I wanted to talk about some things that involve students, children, teenagers. So a big federal report released last week shows that teen cannabis use, I know you're familiar with this report, teen cannabis use held steady in 2014. The reason why this is big news, and we've talked about it on the program, I believe last week or the week before, is that legal sales started in 2014 in 2 of the states. And in both of those states, the trends held steady and didn't move to a statistically significant level. So I want to know from you, what does that say that adolescent marijuana use didn't change in 48 American states, and in 2 or 3 others, it actually declined in this first year of sales?
Well, I think that it's really incredible that we're starting to see some of these things that we've been talking about for years, right? We know pretty well that teen use of marijuana is not correlated to concerns about long-term effects, because teenagers don't think about long-term effects when they're deciding whether or not to use a substance.
Right.
We know that making marijuana legal for adults is not going to encourage more young people to use it in the long term. Although, I'm not particularly surprised by a very small, but what will ultimately be, I think, a temporary bump in Colorado, and I'm not surprised that it's statistically insignificant.
Right.
But one of the things that that is very interesting about this entire conversation around teen use is that, and your colleague John Ingold wrote a piece just a couple days ago about this, which is that there is so much we don't know. The data that we had prior to 2012 was inadequate, and the data that we've had from 2012 to 2014 was inadequate. And so now in 2015, we're starting to see some baseline information about the real impacts of marijuana legalization in Colorado. And in a handful of years, we'll be able to make some more concrete predictions. But when you have folks like Tom Gorman and the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Task Force, screaming that the sky is falling, it's really difficult to believe when you look at the actual evidence that we're seeing and hear stories from your friends. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what things look like in a handful of years, and to seeing what school data looks like now that they're pulling out marijuana-related offenses versus all drug offenses.
I know, and the data collection on this was extremely incomplete, and I think we're finding that a lot of these government entities and the public schools weren't quite prepared for this. The Colorado State Patrol, could have been separating marijuana DUIs from alcohol DUIs before they were, but since they weren't, it's taking us until now to kind of separate the data and really dig in. But I think these numbers were interesting, because here we are.
Right.
Colorado had a full year of sales in 2014, and if these numbers aren't showing a statistical increase at this moment, it'll be interesting to see what 2015 says.
Yeah, I don't think that we'll see much more increase.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing them, whatever they are.